Election Day, Sunday, November 17, 2024. Number of registered voters, total 7,371,890, including 3,708,218 men, representing 50.3%, and 3,663,672 women, representing 49.7%. 7,033,850 voters are registered in Senegal and 338,040 abroad. Polling stations, there are 16,440, 15,633 in Senegal and 807 abroad. Senegalese voters will elect the 165 members of the National Assembly for a 5-year term. Candidate lists, there are 41 registered political parties, coalitions or independent entities. Campaigning began on October 27 and concludes on November 15. Domestic and international observers, 506, 446 national and 60 international observers. Polls open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
It's 4:32 p.m. here in Dakar, the Senegalese capital. Good evening to you, home and abroad. Thank you for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM. We are coming to you live from our studios here in Dakar, and welcome to the third edition of the special coverage of the 2024 parliamentary election here in Senegal. It's a very crucial election that will determine who takes the majority in the National Assembly. For the next hour, we will bring you updates, reports and features, plus all you need to know about this all very important parliamentary election. We do have our guest already seated in the studio, but before I introduce him, let me just refresh your minds that there are 7,371,890 citizens who have registered on the electoral rolls in the country. Outside the country, there are 338,040 nationals for the diaspora vote. Well, before we continue, earlier on our second edition, we brought you the statement made by the President, Bashir Jamai Faye, after voting. But this time around, we also captured the comment made by the former Prime Minister, Amadou Ba, after he voted in his constituency. Let's take a listen.
I have just completed my duty of voting. It went well. We were well received. I would like to thank the administration for the measures taken here in the Parcelles Asseni, especially in the Grand Medina Center. I thank the administration, the defense forces, and the security forces for their participation. It is a public event. We salute them. The vote went well. I'm used to voting here. There used to be tension, but today we see less. We are calling on Senegalese to exercise their right to vote. It is time to vote and express their choice. It is very important.
Former Prime Minister Amadou Ba speaking there after voting in Grand Medina downtown Dakar. Well, the current mayor of Dakar says he is happy with the peaceful conduct of the voting process, but laments the unexpected voter turnout. Bamba Fall himself, a candidate invested on the Dakar departmental list of the Sam Sakadu coalition, calls for calm and serenity in voting. He also urged young people to get out and vote.
Permettez tout d'abord de remercier l'ensemble des électeurs Je viens d'accomplir ma mission citoyenne, je viens même de voter.
I would like to thank all the voters. I just completed my civic mission. I just voted. I noticed that there is a low turnout. There is a low participation at the electoral level. What explains this includes the bad speeches, the hate speech, the words and scenes of violence. So the people don't need that. So I believe that this time we have real deputies of the people. Deputies who will forget their political color and embrace their political responsibility. Every time they speak at the assembly, we will feel that they speak for their department and for the people. We no longer need an assembly that promotes a political leader. We needed real deputies in the name of the people and for the people. We have faced a lot of difficulties. Therefore, the assembly should not be used as a blockade. We should not feel 100% against the assembly. We should feel that the assembly with the power is participating in developing our dear country. So, long live the deputies of the people. Long live the real deputies of the people. And we ask young people to come and vote in the afternoon, because the participation rate we saw did not exceed 25%, which is not normal. Legislative elections do not mobilize as local elections. Last time we had 48%, but let's do it again, at least to have more. I thank everyone. I thank the journalists. Long live Senegal.
Je remercie tout le monde, je remercie les journalistes. Vive la paix et vive le Sénégal.
And that was Bamba Fall there, Canada invested on the Dakar, calling for calm and serenity in voting. All right, let's come back here to the studio and talk more about this election as I bring on board our guest. He is a former parliamentarian and the person of Mr. Umar Sy. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. And welcome to West Africa Democracy Radio.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for West African Democracy Radio, the job they're doing following the democracy across the board in Africa, especially now in Senegal with the election, the parliamentary election that we're having right now.
Indeed. Thank you so much. Well, I see that you have voted. There is a mark on your left finger. But how was it? Tell us, how was the feeling after voting?
Well, it was good, a good feeling, because it means that Senegalis have a stronger democracy. And I went there early. I voted quietly because I remember like just 7 months ago, I spent 1 hour and a half waiting to vote. And today I just spent about 10 to 15 minutes to vote, which means it was a low turnout in the morning. Unexpectedly, around maybe 12 o'clock, 12:30, we were hearing it was around 15 to 20%. I had the rate is going up a little bit, between 35 to 40%. We'll see what's going to happen by 6.
I think we may be able to surpass the previous percentage of 45?
Maybe not. I don't know yet, because you don't have a really insight about what's going on. But we've seen like by for example, in the north, Podor, for example, in Futa, they have like a higher turnout, around 45%, 46%. You have on the north, on the east, for example, Tamba is still a little bit low, around 25 to 30%. So it depends on the regions where we're seeing the turnouts. And usually we have in Senegal, like, you know, in the evening, that's where the people really go out to vote.
Indeed. Well, what kind of assembly are you expecting this year?
Well, that's a good question. What kind of assembly I'm expecting? What kind of assembly we're going to have? That's something that we can have to. I'm expecting to have assembly that will be able to represent the people, and also to be able to control the government, because that's the role of the parliament, and also to oversee the budgets, to make sure that the budget is very well spent, and also to have proposal laws, and especially also when we have a new government, they have their vision 2050, so they will try to bring something on the table on the other side. the opposition has his own plan to participate. The coalition Jam and Jerin from Amoruba is calling more for collaborative relationship in the parliament to help to make sure that the things going smoothly. So since we are in a kind of difficult situation economically speaking, and we don't need to have a parliament that will block the government. But we don't want also to have a parliament where we're going to see violence. We see in the past that it was very tense. But we've seen this during this campaign that it was a very harsh words that have been said between coalitions, especially the coalition in the power, coalition Sama Kadu. And it had they said like a bad impact on the people, how they expect to have programs, speaking about what we're going to do in the parliament. But on the other hand, it's been like since 2021, 2020, this is kind of violence and speaking very harshly between opponent has been very trending in Senegal.
Is that a serious concern for you? Is this
Yes, it's
to be worried
very
about?
serious. Yes, it's a very serious concern because when you are a politician and you said your aspiration is to help build the country, that you come with a program, you expect more that they will talk about what will be the priorities, how we're going to spend our monies. Now we are a country of gold, of oil and gas. How we're going to use these resources? We have also mineral resources. Young people are looking for jobs. So
do you think that really formed part of their campaign? Because they have been discussion of people not really understanding the policies that these candidates are, churning out in campaign periods.
Yes, usually sometime when I've been in the politics for 14 years following, but some people don't understand really what is the job of the parliament. So when you hear them talking during the campaign, you expect that you probably think that they are in the presidential campaign. Otherwise, they wouldn't make some of this proposal because if you go to the parliament, I was a member of the parliament. You have the budgets coming. You oversee what is the budget. You're going to discuss with the different ministries what will be the main goals of the government for 1 year. And secondly, you can have missions to control the government to see exactly if they have issues, where the issues are, and especially also to make sure that the control is effective with the government.
Well,
but usually probably that because they don't know exactly what is the parliament, people are just making some proposal that are not really in.
I would really like us to talk more on that because it's really a concern. And on our previous discussion on this platform, we also talked about the fact that most people don't understand the priorities of the lawmakers. They believe that it's the I'm using the term lawmakers because in Anglophone,
yes, they're making the law.
Yeah, the parliamentarians in this case, they will come build roads, build other infrastructure for them. Whereas it may not really seem as how they're being told. How can we change that narrative and make the people understand, like you mentioned, the real role of why this person is there in the National Assembly?
Yeah, first of all, it has to be in a how the politicians need to express themselves with the population. Because now, I think citizens understand really what is the role of the parliament. So sometimes when the politician is speaking and said, "I'll make sure that they're going to build for a role for you," or sometimes they're laughing because they said he's out of the context. Yes, the government is the one who's proposing his budgets. The only thing that the parliament will do is to oversee the budget and make sure that the money is spent very well. He will probably make the law proposal. You can make some proposal to see how, for example, one law going to impact the industry in Senegal, transformation, the goods locally. You can introduce this type of proposal, but it's still the the executive has an upper hand on the decision of the laws. So it's kind of hard to make some proposition coming from the lawmakers. In Senegal, they call him also lawmakers, but it's very hard to make a law here, surely. But I think we have to more also have a debate about what is the role of the parliament and how the politicians should understand what they should do when they get in the parliament. So they won't be spending time on talking about issues that are not concerning the parliament. And sometimes it's not even, I think some is just doing with to be opposition. So you say, I'm opposition, I would say whatever I want. So because I see some proposal, I say, of course, doesn't make no sense, but you try to make your way to the population. But I think we have well-educated citizens right now, and it's important.
What was it like during your time as a parliamentarian and this last house? Was it as fierce as this? As like you mentioned earlier, fighting in and out, argument here and there. Was it as fierce as what we saw a couple of months back?
Well, arguing, having first moment, it happened, and I was in the parliament from 2012 to 2017. But at the time, Macky Sall came as a new president, and the trend was like to help him with his new power. So it was a more collaborative parliament in 2012-2017. But by the end of 2017, it's starting to see that the opposition is taking a more prominent role to say, like, we're not following from Macky Sall on these issues. And then we've seen in 2017, 2022, a parliament that is more divided. And in 2022 to 2024, right now, it wasn't even more divided. It was very tense. Yes, and surprisingly, it was almost the 50-50 parliamentarians. They would have been able to make some agreement to make sure that they can move some issues together or change some laws and collaborative law. But the tension between the opposition and Macky Sall was so high, and it reflected itself in the parliament. And I'm worried about the same way we campaigned during these 3 weeks. It will be very hard to have a parliament that will be collaborative, that will work together as constructive, because the Prime Minister have been having harsh words, and he's talking about thieves. He's talking about we will address such and such. And it was not a way to make sure that people will be more able to get together and work for the priorities. On the other hand, you see in Barthélémy Diaz, like a mayor also, and Bougane Gueye having also harsh words towards the Prime Minister, towards even the President. I think less with the President and more with the Prime Minister. And if you look at the list, if you have Barthélémy Diaz as the head of Samusuñu Kaddu, if you have the 7th or the 6th or the 9th coming at the parliament, Bougane will be also there. If you have on the other side the Prime Minister coming at the parliament, I don't know if you're going to say it as a Prime Minister, but if he come into parliament, you know for sure that it's not going to be easy for him. It's going to be a very tense moment. So are we going to a parliament that it will be able to make sure that the program of the president, the vision of 2050, will be realized? I have a lot of doubt about that.
But do you see a possibility of a possible agreement with this too? Because the campaign was really tough, and several parties coming together to form coalitions because they do not want the ruling party to, take the majority, as a tease. What do you think will be the likely scenario at the end of this evening?
It depends. It will depend on the turnout.
The turnout will determine that.
Will determine that for us. It's very hard for the opposition to win when you have a new government in power that is freshly elected. That will be very hard. Usually they will be able to have the majority of the parliamentarians. So we'll have to see. The first scenario, of course, is they will win, and then they don't have no excuse no more to talk about what happened in the past with Macky Sall. People are waiting for them now to create jobs, to face all the issues that we're seeing right now on the side of the economy. On the other side, if the opposition win, it will be very hard for them.
How do you mean?
Well, I've seen some like Samus Nyukade will be very harsh on the government. That's for sure. If the government will also try to move their laws, that will be also a lot of discussion. But I think for the budget, it won't be an issue. Voting the budget and all this. Probably some of the laws, but kindly speaking, I'm kind of doubting about this 15th. I think it's the 15th parliamentary. They will be doing better than. I don't think they will do as much better as the past in the past.
Well, yes. This just brought me to what I wanted to ask you. Your assessment of the last assembly. You think they did well, looking at the comparison you've given back during your time, till last assembly?
Yeah, when we were in 2012 and 2017 already, we were saying about these parliamentarians are not working. They're taking our money. They're spending our gas. They're having trucks. Well, it happened. But since 2012, the trend that I've been seeing, 2012, 2017, I think it was a good government, parliament, and we changed a lot of laws, the new mining code laws. That's the year that we brought also the law against tobacco. We brought a lot of laws on the table. 2012, 2017, I think it was a good parliament, but there was a lot of tensions starting to show up. But in 2022, 2024, I think that was very, very... I don't want to be very harsh and say very bad, but it was very controversial as far as parliament and working. At the end, with this new government coming, we're seeing that from my point of view, the president could have been voting the budget first, and we can go to the election year.
Okay.
It will help the country move forward smoothly. Right now, we spend about 11 milliard,
billion.
Yeah, billion in to just for the voting process, around 15 millions CFA, billion CFA. This money could have went somewhere right now because we have a lot of issues to solve, especially that we coming and you see how the flood in the north happening. That would have been money well spent. Okay, we didn't vote a budget yet. The government has already raised more than 1,000 billion CFA. We don't have no control of money yet where it went. Right now, we heard also that IMF said they won't be giving any money until June 2025. So it's kind of scaring what we're gonna see building up toward 2025. Is the government will be able navigating through all these issues and provide jobs, securities, healthcare as expected from the population, or they're gonna face harsh time and they will have to explain themselves time and time again? Because I don't think that the way they're trying to explain everything about the money have been stolen, corruption. In the beginning, yes, you can say that to the population, but at one point they will tell you, okay, it's been 1 year now, you're here, because almost 9 months. Either you're gonna have to take these people to jail and show us the proof that they took the money, or you're gonna have to give us something else that we can go and make sure that we'll make sure that you're gonna spend the money on issues that concerns the population. And for now, from what we have seen, most of the talks that the Prime Minister, coming from the Prime Minister, is only about justice. Okay, everybody's looking for justice. We also want to fight corruption. But if you find out all these people how much money they took, well, you put him in jail. You still have to provide
Those things that
breakfast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, and everything else going with it. So they need to focus in jobs.
But do you think some of these pointers that you have mentioned will inform? Yeah, we know it's already 7 months thereabout, and people are really expectant. There's a whole lot. I mean, people can just wait for the parliamentary elections to be done and done with. Let's get things on the way. But do you think some of these pointers that you have mentioned, healthcare, the need for healthcare, the flood disaster in the north, hunger, inflation, and the rest of them, will inform how the people will vote today?
For now, the people are still trying to give a chance to the new administration. Because reminding you that they had 54% during this presidential election. That means we gave you a very strong voting, so you can show us your new projects. Now that we've been going to 7 months, we already seen the trends. Why people are not coming out to vote? Are they starting to say these politicians are just talking, but we're not seeing nothing yet? Or is something that during the campaign that they've seen that, like, say, okay, we're backing off because we don't see anything clear? That's why I said at the end of the day we'll see. But for sure, that one thing that I know for fact, this government won't have no excuse after this election. They will need to now get things done. That's for sure. They only have 5 years. They don't have 7 years. Already 1 year is gone. We've seen all these talks about what Macky Sall has done and all this. Okay, people understand that. That's why they're voting for you. Now, we've seen also that we have a really tense relationship with the IMF right now. Where the money will come from. Secondly, the economy, the private sector is living some harsh moment right now. So no job creation, no added value in the economy yet. Nothing. The vision is not implemented yet. So they are having a small windows to get things done.
I would like to ask you, sorry for cutting in, I would like to ask you if peradventure we see the ruling party win the majority, would they at any point need to cooperate with the opposition at some point, or vice versa? If the opposition wins, and then would the ruling party need to cooperate with opposition to ensure that this 2050 agenda scales through?
Yes, in both cases they need to cooperate, especially also the government. If they win, I think the best thing they have to do right now to appease people, the tension in Senegal, and to bring people together to say, okay, we win the election here, we win the presidential election, we win the parliamentary election. Let's get together and work right now for the best of the country and the best of the people. For that to happen, it needs to Mr. Ousmane Sonko to turn down his tone toward the opposition. We've seen that he's been in his office and live in his Facebook talking, I don't see no opposition in Senegal, they're not on the street, they're scared. This is not what we are waiting from him right now. What we are waiting from him is to have more leadership, to bring people together and say, since we have, the population have gave us all these instruments right now to work, we need to cooperate. For the fact that I know also that Amadou Ba has said several times that if I win the election anyway, I will cooperate with the ruling party. Because I know we have a lot of things waiting for us and we need to get it done. And otherwise, we will facing some hardship between 2025 to 2026, even to go to 2027. So that's what he says. I don't know in how the other people will act, but I think cooperating will be the best issue for the both parties.
Indeed. Well, when we come back, we'll talk about gender parity in this parliament. If you're just tuning in, this is a special coverage of the parliamentary election in Senegal 2024, and we are live on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. We're also live on YouTube and Facebook. You can connect with us, West Africa Democracy Radio English service. Now, talking about women participation, here is Aja Sene. She is a woman who voted this morning in the parliamentary elections. Take a listen to her comment.
The process is okay. Yes, I just processed my vote. It was quickly, so no problem. I find people here and they do it normally. Yes, no other thing. It was fine.
You are among one of the few women who've come out to vote. It seems there's an apathy on the part of women to come out in their numbers to vote. What do you say to women who do not want to participate in the elections?
I think that women are, this morning is Sunday morning, so many of women going to the market. I think that after they will come to vote. So some of them, maybe they are not wake up early, but me, usually I work early morning. I come to vote. Every vote I work early morning and do it and go to do my things.
There you have it, Justin, a voter in the parliamentary elections this morning. She's given us how it went and her experience. Well, former Senegalese Prime Minister Abdoul Mbaye was among the many top dignitaries and cabinet officials under former President Macky Sall, who honored the November 17 vote. The votes are ongoing and will be closing, but the former Prime Minister, is calling on young people to go to the polls. Let's take a listen.
Well, I'm really very surprised by so few people coming to vote, because it's an important poll. It's an important poll because Senegal has to pass a new stage. We are now a real democracy when we call us to elect a new president. But it could be better if, when we have to choose our representatives in the National Assembly, the Parliament, it could be very interesting for Senegal and for our democracy to choose good people to go there, and not only for applauding the president or the chief of government or the ministers.
You seem to have a soft spot for Senegal Kesse, right?
Yes, that's right.
Senegal Kesse. Are you hopeful that the Senegal people would obviously give Senegal Kesse the room or the chance to get majority in parliament to at least ensure effective monitoring and accountability?
I really think it could be difficult to have a majority, but I hope we could have many representatives in the parliament, because we, as I was saying it just now, we have to choose people who show by the past that they are giving much attention to the general interest. We have to show that we must send to the parliament people who care about people of Senegal, and not trying to go into applause the party and the president and the prime minister. We have to go ahead, and we are calling for that.
In a way, you actually served during Macky Sall's time, and you were the Prime Minister of Macky Sall. Macky Sall had a developmental plan. Fast forward in Bassirou Diomaye Faye's administration, he's also developed Senegal 20 developmental plan. Some civil society and some academia are saying that it's not so much of a difference. What do you make of Senegal 2050 transformational developmental plan?
Well, I have been, you're right, I have been the first Prime Minister of Macky Sall. And the reason I accepted to be his Prime Minister is that he was calling for something new. He was calling for nation before party. We used to see something else. Everybody was pushing party and members of the party before interest of the nation. And happily, we are still in this way, because the new government shows it. When they have to choose people to be head of offices, head of enterprises, national enterprises, they just choose from the party. And we should give much attention to capacities, to the way you went through what you have shown before being chosen and so on. They said they were doing that like that, but we didn't saw it. The real question of development of Senegal is linked to capacity of governance to not just to follow what is interest for the people who are governing. And I think Senegal is not an exception in Africa. All over Africa, we have to build strong institutions and not only relying on people who are head of parties and trying to have money for them, for their families, for whoever back them in getting the power. And so that's what we are calling for in Senegal, Kassel.
Indeed, former Senegalese Prime Minister Abdoul Mbaye speaking there. And part of what he talked about is urging young people in particular, to churn out and vote. Very key there. Well, my guest is still very much in the studio, Omar Sy, former parliamentarian. Well, you heard the former Prime Minister, a very key concern, young people not showing much interest in this election. Is it because it is not like what we saw in the presidential election?
Yeah, it's a good question. We didn't see them turning out like in the presidential election. Maybe in the evening, I don't know. Maybe also they had a high expectation when they were voting during the presidential election. It's been almost 6 months, nothing on the table yet. A lot of talks, a lot of back and forth words, but nothing really that provide them jobs. And the main reason that they voted for this new for PASTEF is to provide them jobs and to be able to say, like, now we have hope. We have a young president, we have a young prime minister. So, and it took almost 5 months to 6 months to provide a vision on 2025 right now. And still, they didn't grasp anything yet. They will stand this hope, that will keep this hope going on. Maybe that's why it turns down. How it's going to reflect on the election, I don't know yet. But for sure that in a month or two after this election, legislative election, young people will be more demanding. That's why we are asking them to come and vote. We expected they would support the new government. They will come out and vote, because we all believe that was one of the main reservoir of PASTEF, having this youth come behind them and voting for them. But we'll see how it's going to turn out.
Well, let's talk about nation before party. A very key point also mentioned by the former Prime Minister. Do you think many of these parliamentarians vying, in this election are putting the nation before their party? From what you have mentioned, there's been a whole lot of rhetorics, especially during the campaign period. Back and forth words, hash in some cases, party promotion. Are we seeing nation growth, nation development first before party in this case?
Well, that's what also this new government have sold us. And then when they come to power, we've seen that things that have been said, like we will make sure that we'll choose the best. But at the end of the day, they chose most of the people from their party. and didn't change anything, the nation before the party. And now when you go into the parliament, the way I'm seeing this parliament right now, and unless we change the way we're voting for our parliamentarian, they will be really strongly supporting the political party, because people will tell you Usman Song, he was the one who chose me to come out of parliament, Amadou Ba was the one who chose me to come out of parliament, on such and such. So unless we change this model of voting and make sure that the parliament will have more power coming from the population, I don't think that this nation before the party will stand.
But how can we give more power to the people? I mean, if we say we're practicing democracy, the power usually doesn't seem to be in the hands of the people.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying we need to change the model, because right now we have a national list. Most of the parliamentarian, about 25 or 30%, will come from the national list, and we have all these departments, 46 departments and abroad, where people competing. And I think if we change the model and say people should compete for the department to be
not
really
nominated,
elected, nominated at the parliament, that will give them more power and more freedom from the government, and more freedom from the party. They will be able right now to say, I'm standing for the people. I was elected. I was nominated, so I have my say on how the budget will be spending. I have my say in the money for my department. But for now, they will go back in the parliament and tell you, like, I was chosen by Usman Sonko. If he says so, I do so.
But would you say parliamentary democracy is really working, not just in Senegal, but in West Africa? When you compare the parliamentary system here in Senegal and what we have in Togo and, say, Côte d'Ivoire, you think it's really working?
It's working because we still have parliamentarians who have voting. But I think that we need to push forward, to move forward with more power for the parliamentarians. They still look at themselves like we are the backbone of the government when it comes to budget, voting, to laws, so they're supporting. We've seen for example, in the United States now with Trump, it's changed again. They have the Senate and the Parliament. But we see, like in Ghana recently, that the opposition has been winning the Parliament, and probably. This trend will help also the opposition or the population say we need to balance the power so these people can be controlled, and how they're going to spend our money. We can be trustworthy with only giving all the power to the government and the parliamentarian also. So we have a way to go. Like for example, something that I liked in Ghana that I don't see here yet in our parliament, we have subcommission in Ghana. The subcommission in Ghana are parliamentarian dedicated in oil and gas, for example, or education, subcommittee. This subcommittee we don't have it in Senegal. We have just big committee, 30 people, 30 parliamentarians. So it doesn't allow them to really control the government as they should. But if they have this subcommittee, you will control, for example, some of the agency. The agency are not controlled very well by the parliamentarians. So we need this kind of subcommittee to be able to control the budgets, because we have agency that have more money than the ministries. That's for sure. Yes, IFTP, CDC, and all these big agencies, but they are not controlled. So they need to be controlled by the parliamentarian. So that's one thing. We don't have also we need to have a caucus for the oppositions. A small caucus that will allow the opposition for it, like each month, to call on one of the ministry or one of the agency for special meeting, and to uphold them about the spending of the money or some of the projects that they will need to do. So there is a lot of change that we can do in our parliaments to make them more effective. In Senegal, you see, when you go to the parliament, you don't have like assistant to help you with your to oversee the budget. So when the people in the power, like the government, come for the voting to vote the budget, they have more more information. They're already well informed about what the parliamentary are expecting. So we have to balance all that.
Well, talking about gender poverty, I mean, we saw it work in the last parliament. We saw, Senegal made it work for the first time in the continent. And when we say it worked, I mean in terms of quality proposals, quality services from the women folks. Did we see that in the previous parliament?
In the previous parliament, you're talking about before we had gender, or this one?
This one here. This one.
I didn't see it really in this in this past parliament. 2012, 2017. It was a very, when we started this gender party. It worked. The women were really involved in a lot of policies. Every time we have meetings, if you count the people, you will have more women than men, parliamentarians, and they were able to push to support a lot of bills. But this was more politically tense between the parties, so it reflects at the parliaments with a woman really going against each other, because if you support it
within the party, within the same party,
within the coalitions.
Okay,
you have the coalition in power, and you have the coalition and opposition coalition like Yewi Askanwi. It wasn't really collaborative between women as far as the bills and the issues like before when I was there. It's a good thing that to have this gender party, because it helped women to push their own issue, but it balances also the society as itself when it's coming to controlling the spending of the money, how much money will go to this to help women. We know that they have a lot of issues that they want to push forward, and they have been very vocal at the parliament, very, very vocal. And I need to say something. A lot of people talk sometimes that yes, you need to send well-educated people at the parliament. That's really good. Yes, that's really good. But we need to have to also to understand our society as itself. We don't have these old people educated in French. Yes, but apps have been seeing.
Is that going to be a problem? Because I know this issue came up in a previous conversation. Most people weren't educated in French, but perhaps in Wolof and not in Arab, or in Arab, not in Wolof and in French. How is it going to play out?
No, but we had in 2012, I think it is still ongoing, we had the 7 translations in the parliament. You can speak Fulani, you can speak Wolof, you can speak Arabic, you can speak Soninke or Incha. So it was very helpful, because people who were not able to speak in French were able to speak their own language and to talk about the issues of their communities. And I think that, as from my part, I've seen women very engaged because they understood in their own language the issues.
Indeed. Well, let's cross over and join Professor Saliu John, the Director of African and Post-Colonial Studies at the Sheikh Anta Diop University. Prof, thank you so much for joining us, and it's good to have you.
Okay, my pleasure.
Prof,
I'm also happy to be invited to the channel.
Indeed. You're welcome.
West Africa Democracy Radio. Yeah.
Well, how important is this parliamentary elections, especially to the people?
Okay, it's really important to the people, because the way they understand it is they have to elect people who are going to represent them at the parliament. So it's really very important. But if you look at the turnout, and then we look at the history of legislative election in Senegal, you are under the impression that many Senegalese people don't really value legislative election compared to when it is a presidential election, where we have more people going to the poll to vote, where the turnout is higher than when we have legislative election, especially with the early election after the presidential election that took place in March.
Well, you mentioned something about the people knowing that they need to vote in people. Are they voting people because they need to vote, or they are voting the priorities? They are voting people who will bring in make provisions for their needs and proper representation?
Yeah, they're just voting for representation, but the representation is that they want to have people who will be their voices at the parliament. But the idea is that they don't really know what kind of voices are they going to have at the parliament. Because if we look at the different MPs, especially in the last legislation or in the preceding legislation, the impression that many Senegalese people realized was that actually the MPs, they just go to parliament for their own political parties, whereas they should not be sitting at parliament for their political party, but especially for the Senegalese population. So they should be the voices of the Senegalese population defending their interests, but also voting what is really good for the population of Senegal.
Well, talking about what will make up those at the National Assembly in terms of the several coalitions, the ruling party, and a whole of that, you think we're going to see a very tense parliament, different from the previous?
No, it depends on those who will be who will have MPs. But what I mean, sometimes we can have different way of looking at it. For others, the ruling party has to have the majority of MPs. For others, they do not have to be given the majority. So there should be a sort of balance so that people can really discuss issues that matter to the Senegalese people, and not having majority which allow them to really vote whatever they want, or have their MPs vote whatever law that they want. But see, we have a balance, or if people from the opposition party have more MPs, then this will allow to have discussion, to have debate in the parliament, and this is going to allow the MPs to put the interest of the population first, and not the interest of the different political parties first.
Well, finally, Prof, what are you expecting to be the outcome of this election?
So actually, it's very hard to tell, because sometimes you don't really know what is in the mind of the Senegalese population. Sometimes you might always you might expect something, and then something else has happened, especially with the presidential election. What really happened? But my expectation is that actually with the low turnout, with the weak turnout, so there is a lot to be read from it. There is something to be analyzed. Even if the ruling party has the majority, this will allow us to really have a new analysis of the political situation of Senegal, because it is just an expression. And the weak turnout is also a form of expression of those who did not go to the vote. But if it is the opposition party that has the majority, it is also an expression from the Senegalese population. But it's very hard to say that this is what is really going to happen. But with the low turnout, we already have an expression, or we already have an idea of what the Senegalese people want, and what do they have what they have in mind.
Indeed.
In relation to...
Yes, go ahead, Prof. In relation to... Continue, please. Okay, I think... Okay. Well, Prof. John, thank you so much for your time and for joining us on this program. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure.
I mean, Mr. C, you've heard him. The same thing you talked about, low turnout. Well, as we round up this conversation, what do you think should be the way forward? The people may think differently from what other people are thinking. You may be expecting a huge turnout because we saw what happened in the presidential. It may be the opposite in this case. What should be the way forward?
Well, the way forward is to also maybe rethink our democracy, and to also be able to have a better approach with the population as far as what are their needs, what are they expecting from the politicians, and but reminding you that is not new that we have low turnout during the legislative election, because in 2000, I think 17, also we had this kind of low turnout. Usually the election year is the one where people come out really to vote.
Yeah.
And this one was like a referendum, because they just came and vote for the ruling party, about 55%. Now, the way moving forward, like I said, is to rethink. One, we have too much parties right now, coalitions. You have 41 people participating in this election year. Is very complicated for the people. And then you have this, what they call these so-called inter-coalitions, that really...
Coalitions, imagine.
Yes, you have already coalition are really complicated. Then you're talking about inter-coalitions that happened with Yewi can be like in 2022. Now you have 3 big coalitions that want to do an inter-coalition. That for the voters, they don't really understand that. I think we need to rethink that. We need to have also guidelines for the parties. We have too many parties, 200, 300, almost 400 parties. It cannot. There's no more democracy right now. This is very complicated to get people engaged, to get population engaged. At least if you have 5 or 10 or at least 7 very strong parties or very strong coalition, people can really reflect on that. But if you go in the voting booth and you have 41 papers to pick up and then to vote, sometimes people become lazy and say, okay, I don't have time to go for that because it's too much. These people are not serious. I don't think that is very big change, but still it's democracy. It costs money, but that we need to be thankful for is, one, we're voting in peace.
Yes,
it's quiet, very quiet. People are going by their businesses, and tomorrow Monday people will go back to work.
Indeed. Omar Say, a former parliamentarian, thank you so much for your time, and it's been a great pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the work you're doing to really reinforce democracy in Africa, especially in West Africa, and hoping that we'll have more stable countries in the near futures.
And thank you so much for that. All right, it's been the special coverage of the presidential election here in West Africa Democracy Radio. Yes, it's a special coverage of the parliamentary election here in Senegal 2024. Thank you so much for your time. This is the much we will be able to take in this edition of the coverage, but Sunny will be back much later at 7 o'clock to bring you more updates as we wind down on the coverage. Thanks so much again for your time, and for all of our team members behind the microphone, thank you so much. And I am Imo Edet. Bye for now.
Senegal Parliamentary Election Snapshot.